Let's get started right away with uh, with what other than your favorite topic, which is Air Canada changes Aeroplan. Uh, Air Canada changes Aeroplan award chart, and they have nicely rolled in a few more preferred partners into their dynamic chart, which will now be called what's the name of the new chart? It's called Air Canada and Select Partner Reward Chart. It's a mouthful. And basically, what it is they are getting away from a separate chart for Emirates and Fly Dubai, and they're consolidating all of that into one dynamic chart, but also onboarding some select partners like United, Etihad, of course, Emirates and Fly Dubai, and all of the regional partners in Canada, which is PAL Airlines, Calm Air, and Canadian North. I think I got them all. Um, all of them, with the exception of Emirates and Fly Dubai, are currently on a fixed chart. So if you are thinking about flying any of these before mentioned or aforementioned airlines, you're better off booking your tickets right now because these changes are going to take effect in March 25th. So you want to be able to book all of those things beforehand. And yes, I fully agree, Alex. That is my reaction as well. There's no other way. But let's just quickly see it. What are the other changes they've announced? So this was the big one that these other preferred partners are becoming dynamic, and the other big one, I think, even though it's somewhat symbolic, is the fact that they're getting rid of the upper limit. So right now in the current charts, you'll notice that it says starting from and has an upper limit, lower limit, and upper limit to each redemption value on the dynamic chart with Aeroplan, or even with Emirates and Fly Dubai for that matter. They're getting rid of that upper limit altogether, and they're introducing something called as median, uh, sort of median pricing. To give you an idea of what the real redemption value has been in the last few months. And from what they have told us, those median values will be based on the last 6 months of redemptions on in that particular category and whatnot. And of course, all of the other partners that have not been mentioned so far will continue to remain on a fixed chart. So that's still good. And the starting rates for the fixed charts or dynamic continues to be the same. Well, not for the fixed chart because there is no dynamic pricing there, but the starting rate continues to be the same. So they haven't tinkered with the starting rate, but what they are doing is they are putting a median value to give us a idea of what that might look like. Okay, Alex says, I want to give Air Canada the benefit of the doubt, but as a consumer, we have been burned by them before. The verbiage where they say they'll only provide the median for the last 3 quarters, I think, is to give an indication of the bands is nice, but I just can't trust their results. Well, I think knowing how they have functioned, I think I'll trust their results, very much trust their results, as long as it's not being, I mean, uh, depending on when, right? So if they're median values, I would love to see their median values change uh, every other quarter. So anything that follows the peak travel period of, say, the Christmas time or peak summer travel, I hope the median values reflect the accurate information because those super high flexible slash dynamic pricing need to be reflected on median. If the median only shows a few points above the starting rate, then I will not trust it as much. But I think their intentions are good in that if it is just drawing up all of the redemptions from say, the past couple of quarters and averaging it out, it will reflect. It'll reflect so, and more so, like I said, in the quarters that follow the peak travel period. So I love to see what the median says on the chart, say around December, because it would have captured everything from the summer peak travel, and then what it says around June, because it would have captured everything around the Christmas travel time, which are those peak numbers, which should typically raise that ceiling quite a bit to give you an accurate reading of what's happening with those charts. Alex continues to say, by the way, the ones that don't know, median is the number in the middle, 139. Yeah, so it's basically think of it like an average, but it's literally the middle number that they'll pick out from a mathematical perspective. That's what median is. Alex, appreciate that explanation for everybody else. So yeah, that is the crux of the changes coming through. The obvious big ones, and there's two ways of looking at this, right? So one simplistic way, at least for this community, the points community, is it's a devaluation. Because if you're going to bring on more partners into a dynamic chart, then there will be pricing that we are looking for, especially. So think about Etihad short haul flights out of Abu Dhabi or even medium haul. So Abu Dhabi to say somewhere in Paris or even London and things like that. I fully expect that to be much more steep now going after March, just because the dynamic pricing is not going to allow us to redeem those flights at the rates they are currently, which is 45,000 in business. The good thing from that, so the flip of that, like I said, two ways to look at it is yes, it might be more expensive, but the other way to look at it is if you don't mind spending a few more points, if you don't mind splurging, because let's be honest, Aeroplan points have become a lot easier to earn for us, have become a lot easier for us to accumulate. So if you don't mind spending a little bit more, then you should be able to see more availability of, say, Etihad, for example, on Aeroplan searches, which is good. So depends on which way you're looking at it. And likewise so the other big one for me was United, of course, because United Polaris routes, for example, unfortunately going dynamic will be a lot more steep than being 60,000, say, to Europe, which it is right now. Um, and I think so. Think about Polaris routes out of US to Australia. Think about what happened to Air Canada flight pricing when Air Canada became dynamic to Australia. And I wouldn't be surprised if I saw those kinds of rates being reflected in and out of Australia with United as well. But like I said, on the flip of it, we should be able to see more United routes now readily available through Aeroplan pricing, Aeroplan search results. They will be expensive, more expensive than they have been right now. But the bright side would be, at least right now, when you search for something that's 3 months, 4 months out, chances are you don't see anything being displayed for United. But at least now in this new world of dynamic pricing, those results will show United at a much higher rates, of course. And I'm assuming all of this is conjuncture. We'll just have to wait and see what happens with this active search results and the pricing that comes through. But conjuncture is, and this is my personal opinion, conjuncture is also the fact that Air Canada will continue to protect its business interests on routes that it heavily competes, even against these preferred partners, right? So if they are flying somebody out of Vancouver to, say, Melbourne or Sydney, and the same routes out of SFO or LAX out of United Polaris, I don't expect them to also show United at that competing price in your search result. I fully expect them to, for a lack of better term, prioritize Air Canada metal on their search results, which they have mentioned very openly on this forum the last time they were there. That they are actively prioritizing, and they are not shy from protecting their business interests in certain regions or on certain routes. So I don't think that philosophy is going to change, despite things becoming dynamic and hence more availability. I don't think that's going to change. So we'll just have to wait and see how things pan out. But all in all, from a points community perspective, this is nothing but a devaluation of these points for us, because this community, the small community that we have, revels in the best value, revels in being able to lock in saver rewards before everybody else does, understanding the patterns of, like, the release patterns and being able to lock those things in. Unfortunately, even though you now can learn release patterns and all of that, the dynamic pricing is going to take a lot of value, will shave away a lot of value despite that for this community. And of course, for the ones that are outside of this community or are just points rich, in the sense that they have lots of points, they wouldn't mind this move at all, because then it allows them to at least redeem their points towards a redemption, even if it is at a quote unquote lesser value. So that's what my sort of outlook is at this right now today, and that might change because I'd be more than happy to be wrong about all of this stuff in terms of Air Canada prioritizing their metal on certain routes, in terms of Saver awards from United not being readily available despite it going dynamic and whatnot, or Etihad, even for Etihad, or even Etihad rates, the long haul. The good news is all of that long haul will return to the search results. But bad news, again, conjuncture, is probably the fact that now that it's dynamic, it will more likely follow what Etihad charts are currently following. So if you've seen, Emirates charts are currently following. So if you've seen Emirates rates and Emirates redemptions on Aeroplan right now, I fear that that's where Etihad redemptions will be. Even though you'll see more availability, it'll be a lot more expensive. Then we go back to the same sort of conversation. If you go back a few weeks, Sash and I were having this conversation on one of these um, streams we did with the PMB team, right? That what are you more comfortable spending more points? So say, for example, I'm just making numbers up. You'll have to look at the charts and see eventually what the pricing is. Uh, Toronto, Abu Dhabi, say Toronto, Abu Dhabi right now is, for example, 80,000 points on Aeroplan. Uh, in the new world, in a dynamic chart, you see a lot more availability, but for say 180,000 points. Are you more comfortable paying 180,000 Aeroplan points, or are you more comfortable, say, booking directly out of an Etihad program and paying a little bit more in terms of cash rates and things like that, which is what we were discussing about Emirates. I'm trying to sort of say that that's where we are headed to, even with Etihad as a dynamic partner here on, and no different with United as well, especially on their Polaris routes, that if they are available, likely that they won't be available at a saver rate, and then the dynamic pricing will just be competing with what you're getting out of an Aeroplan, Air Canada metal versus United metal, if it shows up for some of these routes where both of them are flying to that particular destination. So we'll see. We'll have to just wait and watch. Um, I think with Etihad, American continues to be my preferred program. It is right now. It will continue to be my preferred preferred partner to book those Etihad bookings. So your RBC points that you've been collecting, the Avion points, I would say if you were savvy enough, if you're not that first wave of points community right now, not first wave. If you were first wave, then you've sort of progressed a lot more and you understand that just moving Avion to Avios at 30% rate may not be the best value in terms of the redemptions you're trying to make. It may still often make a worthwhile value for you to convert your RBC points into American, even though it's not one-to-one. But American will open up a lot more availability and award availability for you into cabins like Etihad First or even Etihad Business Class at more preferred rates. 115,000, I think, is what 110, 115,000 is where they normally sit at. Uh, Alex saying between the two, I think he's talking about Aeroplan versus Avios versus Avios versus Alex, which compares between the two. Can you confirm which ones you're talking about? Probably pick Aeroplan, if I remember correctly. Etihad has some horrible high cancellation change fees. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now we know that Alex is talking about Aeroplan. We're booking Etihad using Aeroplan versus booking Etihad using Etihad guest miles. Yeah, you just have to see what you're trying to book with Etihad. There are other flexible rates that have better change and cancellation fee, just like anything else. So you'll really have to compare apples to apples there and see what makes more sense for you. And like I said, even in that conversation, my positioning for Emirates has always been that I'm a little more comfortable paying more Aeroplan miles or Aeroplan points for my Emirates bookings, simply because I find getting Aeroplan points is so much easier for me, as opposed to if I had a couple of $1,000 sitting around, then I can book using Emirates Skywards, which is better on points, but it has lots of taxes. So it depends on where you want to spend that money, right? And I made that argument that, hey, look, if I had to pay, say, $1,200 in taxes and a few thousand points cheaper, then how many Aeroplan points can I purchase for $1,200? And if the answer and end result is the same thing, then why pay taxes there? I may as well just use all of my miles and points here on the Canadian side of things and continue redeeming what I'm trying to redeem. But again, that's not one solution that works for everybody. Everybody does things slightly differently in terms of how comfortable they are paying out of pocket for certain things, how comfortable they are paying out of points for certain things. And to Aeroplan's credit and Air Canada's credit, they have made this ecosystem so easy to enter. It's almost like I hate to say this, but it's almost becoming like an Apple ecosystem, right? Where the barrier to entry is so low, it's very easy to come in. It's very easy to engage and do all of that. But now the high premium redemptions are going to be a little more difficult. And there are so many verticals where you can earn all of these points and miles and things like that with Aeroplan because of their unique partnerships from with everybody from LCBO to Uber to whoever else. That it becomes difficult to get out of that ecosystem simply because it's so easy to earn those points. You're like, you know what? Earlier, I used to spend, say, 75,000. So think about the old Aeroplan, the orange/white Aeroplan. For those that don't know, pre-2020 the EMEA Aeroplan, you would pay for a lot of these international, the static rate was say 75,000, right? 75,000 points to from here to Asia. I'm now more than comfortable in the new Aeroplan, paying anywhere between say 80,000 points to 100,000 points to sometimes even 110,000 points to Asia, because that's just the inflation I've gotten used to. I'm like, you know what? That's just the new world for me, and I'm okay with that because it's become so easy to earn these points and miles through different partnerships. Um, and I think that's where, to their credit, they have made that bit so easy that I think for a large chunk of people, spending 20, 30,000 additional points for a high value redemption won't be such a far-fetched idea, and they'll be a little more comfortable doing that in this new ecosystem of Aeroplan. Okay. Any other questions, concerns, things you've heard from others that we haven't discussed here about these Air Canada changes or Aeroplan changes coming up? They have only, so when we got the media release, they only shared the North America chart with us, basically to show that the starting rates haven't changed and what median will look like on that chart. They haven't released any other charts, and all the other charts will likely release very close to, if not on the day of when the rollover happens. So yeah, I guess my parting thought around it is go ahead, book all of these things that you can at at static rates for the availability that it is, and whatever you can find. If you haven't done so already, I suspect hundreds, if not thousands of people now would have been doing it for the last couple of days since this news rolled out. So yeah, you're better off spending some time this weekend and seeing what other Polaris routes you can lock in and things like that at the current rates, as opposed to waiting till March and beyond because you don't know what those rates are going to be. I mean, we know it's going to be higher. How much higher is the question? So we'll just have to wait and see on that one. Personally speaking, I got stung by a delayed flight slash missed connection recently. So my escape back from, so this was out of Paris. I got into Paris late. My flight got into Paris late, and I missed my Paris to Abu Dhabi first class, Etihad first class that I had booked when these availabilities showed up sporadically, not sporadically, showed up surprisingly a few months ago. Anyways, I decided that the entire trip was not worth my time because I was doing a very short turnaround from Abu Dhabi anyways. So I canceled everything, and I booked same day return, like literally within 3 hours of getting into Paris. I knew I had missed everything. So I canceled and I turned right back around, and I was able to find United availability, United Polaris back from uh, Paris to Newark, and Newark to Ottawa. Newark, Ottawa, obviously not on Polaris. That was the regular business class redemption on the Embraer flight that runs between Ottawa and Newark. But I was able to find that on the day for 60,000 points, and I was happy that I wasn't bleeding more points because of this cancellation at that time. In this new world, even if I tried to do that last minute booking, would I find Saver Awards on Aeroplan? I don't know. We'll have to see, but that's basically what it ended up being. So yeah, maybe story time. I can tell you exactly what happened and now what I was doing and all of that. I mean, what happened with my flight connection delays. There's a lot of things that I learned about the do's and the don'ts and people that helped me out along the way and whatnot. So let's see what Goldie is saying. Before I get there, let's see what Goldie is saying. At least we are getting a few weeks warning to get ready, as opposed to other programs who secretly do it overnight with no press. 100% Goldie, and well put. Is be That is one thing that Aeroplan has done brilliantly. Like, all kudos to them. No matter what changes they have made, they have always announced it well beforehand, despite it being coming across as a quote unquote devaluation or newer and better things. They have always given us enough of a heads up to tell us what's happening and what's coming down the pipeline. So at least you have that little window of opportunity to go ahead and make your bookings at the current rates. So yeah, uh, couldn't have said it better myself. So yeah, kudos to that team for consistently giving its membership a heads up and not doing it like some of the other programs who secretly do the yeah, Grimsley says enhancements with the double A in between. Obviously, hint and nudge to American, and others have done that as well, where they quietly change things in the background, and we just know on the day off, or when some reader consumer tries to do something, they're like, "Hey, why am I seeing this?" And suddenly you realize, oh, it's changed across the board. So yeah, there's that. Alex says, uh, this is being selfish. He says, but I wonder if the big push Air Canada has been in promoting Aeroplan in the US accelerated their plans, similar to how Air France KLM, Flying Blue is putting a push on their frequent flyer programs in North America. Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think they you have to realize that Air Canada and United partnership is that they are a preferred partner much before these changes were announced, right? So when a Star Alliance partner, one of the founding partners, both of them, United and Air Canada, I'm talking about Air Canada trying to make inroads through its products and things, and competing directly and heavily with United on some of these US routes. It's not unusual to be like, you know what, we need to fast track how we are doing these things in the US. So let's sit down with our partner slash biggest competitor in Star Alliance in the region and see if we can sort of mutually benefit from each other's presence um, in that sphere. So I think this preferred partnership will go both ways. We might see certain Aeroplan uh, redemptions may not show up on United and vice versa, especially not show up on Saver rates. And they'll both only present each other's options at a dynamic pricing, which is mutually beneficial to each other, because obviously right now, Aeroplan members were able to, even though it was last minute, were able to lock in a lot of these Saver rates with United, but I don't think United members would have seen too many of these quote unquote saver rates or rates at the base value for Air Canada on their search results. But again, that's just me thinking out loud as opposed to having a definitive data point for you. So yeah, it perhaps is it selfish? No, I don't think it's selfish on the airline's part. It's just business, and I don't begrudge any business trying to make money, as long as, like Goldie was saying, you're giving us enough of a heads up. The reality is, I've been in this game long enough, I suppose, from 2000, when was it? Whenever. 2008, 9 is when I really started paying attention. 2014 is when I started writing and blogging about it. I've been around long enough to know that there is no single program out there which hasn't quote unquote devalued over time. And I keep saying quote unquote is simply because that's just the nature of economics in the real world outside, right? Like, how many of us can even talk about a product or a certain product that wasn't uh, that was cheaper back in the day, and I mean that was expensive back in the day and is cheaper now. unless we're talking like old electronics that are no use to anybody. As we progress, it's just market conditions, I guess. Things are going to become expensive. They continue to become expensive. Uh, is it a step towards going fully dynamic for every partner? Maybe, probably, but I don't think that's going to be a reality for Air Canada. I think that preferred partner group might change. You might get some exclusions, might get some inclusions in the future, but I at least hope and don't think that that's in the near future that Air Canada is going fully dynamic with every single partner out there, simply because if you think about the percentage of Aeroplan members that are trying to book a Swiss metal, trying to book Air India metal, trying to book some of these far-fetched partners around the globe is very small. Most people that are Aeroplan members are looking at the easiest and the best way, and sometimes the best way to fly on Air Canada. I cannot tell you how many people I know within my ecosystem that still love, and including me, that still love the Air Canada pods. They still call them the pods because it's to them that's what sticks in their mind. And to them, being on an Air Canada metal and Air Canada product is still it's like a safer, a known entity. So they rather be with them. And that's who the program is supposed to cater to, is the 95% of their membership. The program is not there just to cater to that 5%, which is you and I. But they have done so well by us, by this community, in the sense that they've been open about it. They have they've been very outspoken about certain high value redemptions that have been left in that program intentionally. They have spoken that Asia 2, Asia 3 category is what I'm thinking of. Asia 3, I think, where it's a great value. The stopover remains a great value. There's so much value to be had from the program still. And don't forget, for this community who are savvy, yeah, it's just our options have dwindled a little bit from that partnership, from that static award chart list. But we'll find ways to still book our saver awards. We'll still find ways to be flexible enough so that our points go a little bit further than your typical Aeroplan member. So I'm not devastated by the changes, but yeah, these are changes. I'm disappointed that it's happening. Personally disappointed, selfishly disappointed, but they're making money, and that's what they're there to do. And if they change the rules of the game, I'm happy to change my behavior around that and still get value as much as I can from the program. I think that's my outlook to it. Yeah, Heather says, I like Air Canada, no regrets. And that's exactly, I think Heather is just putting what I'm trying to say in far fewer and better words. I like Air Canada too, for who they are and what they are. They've never tried to mask themselves as the shiniest and the blingiest thing out there. They've never tried to mask who they are. They've never tried to mask the kind of product that they offer. Instead, they've been proud in their products and services that they offer. And let's be honest, that has incrementally gotten better. It has not gotten better to a point where we can start comparing them to a Singapore Suites or maybe an Emirates flights or an Etihad things. But that's not who they are trying to be. They are trying to be the best they can be within their own reality. And I think for what they are, Air Canada product, signature suites particularly, or even otherwise economy product or premium economy, and what they have done to their onboard services. They've been realistic in their changes, and things are incrementally moving forward. And they have been outspoken about the challenges that come from being in such a sort of structured environment where a government has a lot to do with how operations work, where airport fees and airport realities in Canada are very different from that of the US and things like that. Unions and all of those things come into the picture, right? In terms of what is your operational cost for running an airline of that magnitude. So all of that put in, I think one or two chart changes or one or two chart, again, hey, devaluation every 5 years is not the worst thing to happen to a program. Let's be honest, they have not slandered the charts down, dwindled them to a point where we're like, oh my God, I can't even use these points anymore. They've just become a little bit more expensive to for certain redemptions for certain partners, right? Okay. I didn't think I'll be yapping about this for half an hour, but I have. All right, let's story time. Let's bring you up to speed in terms of what my experience was in terms of that missed connection, and I have a few learnings that I wanted to share and get your reactions on and thoughts on. To be honest, if you would do things differently. So basically, my original booking, like I said, was the Etihad First Class that came through. So I booked myself on Abu Dhabi, on Paris to Abu Dhabi, because that's the route that was showing up all the first class availability. So I went ahead and booked that 65,000 in first class, locked and loaded. That was done. And then I really just had to convince myself that this trip was worthwhile and I should go on that trip. I've mentioned this. I've tried the hard product already, taken pictures, sat in the seats, and all of that. So it was fun. I wasn't overly out there looking to fly first class. But anyways, I convinced myself that I was going to do that trip, despite it being very short turnaround. I wanted to get into Abu Dhabi, spend maybe one night, a day, and then return home. That was my plan. So everything was stacked one after the other, really. So I booked myself out of Ottawa because that was the easiest way to do it. Spent some flying blue miles, booked Ottawa to Paris. So I kind of booked Ottawa to Paris with about 4 hour layover in Paris, and then my first class into Abu Dhabi. And then I booked a separate. So this is like the third ticket. So first ticket was Ottawa, Paris. Second ticket was Paris. Etihad, Paris, Abu Dhabi on Etihad. And then the third ticket that I booked was to get me home, which was Abu Dhabi, Istanbul, Istanbul, JFK. And that was booked on Aeroplan. I think I booked it for 90,000 points from Abu Dhabi into JFK. And then I had some Air Canada wallet credit available to me. So I booked my positioning flight back into Ottawa using cash rate, using what the credits I had in my Air Canada wallet. So, as luck would have it, my flight out of Ottawa kept getting delayed because of rolling technical issues. They didn't tell us what these technical issues were, but we were initially delayed for 2 hours, then two and a half, then three. They were delayed for 3 hours and then started boarding us. So I thought, you know what? I still have about 45 minutes, and we know that once aircraft is in the air, they can make up a little bit of time. So if they just give me 30 to 40 minutes, I was still willing to gun it to my gate through Paris, if you believe that, uh, because I was already checked in for my Abu Dhabi for my flight to Abu Dhabi in first class. Um, yeah, so uh, got in there, but as soon as we boarded, we were like, "Oh shit, de-icing! Yes, that's a reality in this part of the world." We sat in that de-icing bay for 30 more minutes, and that's when I knew there is no way. There's absolutely no way I'm making that flight. At that point of time, I was just waiting to see how to sort of, I started searching on how to cancel my check-in for that flight, because I still had a few hours to go before they would declare me as a no-show. Like Etihad could declare me as a no-show, and I would lose out on my points and my taxes that I'd paid for it. So yeah, I just waited for it to come through. So, but before I could even get there, as the flight took off, then the flight attendant came around and said, "Oh, by the way, there's no sound in the entire flight. That was a technical issue." And they said, "Oh, somebody should have announced that." We were told that the agents would announce that before boarding, and I said nobody announced it. Not that it would make a difference, but anyways, I was on a flight without, well, the in-flight entertainment system was working, but there was no sound, so you couldn't connect a headphone or do anything. It was visual only. There was no audio. Uh, so there was that. And then they had also done an equipment swap. Air France out of Ottawa to Paris actually runs 777-200 as their aircraft right now. That's what they were running. And so when I picked my seats, I picked 4J in the business class cabin, and it was just a two cabin configuration, economy and business class. And behind me were, like, I think, two more rows of business class seats before economy. And as I boarded, I realized, oh, wait a second, this is a 777-300, because it looked far newer, shinier, and all of that. Great, bigger aircraft. It had a premium economy cabin, which I didn't know even was a thing before getting on that aircraft, because I thought I was on the 777-200. But anyways, then turns out my seat was 4J, which because this aircraft had a smaller business class cabin, I was on that last seat, the corner seat before premium economy. And this corner seat was like half a window. So no real windows, half a window, much more squished out seat configuration. And my seat was almost bleeding into premium economy cabin because when I turned left, I didn't see another business class passenger. I basically saw the divider and the feet of the people that were in premium economy. Why am I saying this? I'm just saying that even even though my equipment swap was for a better aircraft, uh, it was for a worse off seat. So, anyways, that I thought was interesting because most often it's the equipment swap that gets you, if it gets you a better aircraft, you're like, ah, I'm better off. But in this case, even though the aircraft became better, my seat became worse off uh, because I was sitting in that last seat by between premium economy and business class. And often those are the seats I remember from my United Polaris as well recently, the one that I really hated. That last seat was sitting next to a washroom, so it just I'm not a big fan of that last row in business class. Let's just say that. And this was another example of why that last row is often the one that compromises on a bit of space, compromises a bit, a little bit on the window and whatnot. Anyways, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. Per se. I was still flying in business class, was still comfortable. Anyways, I had flight took off, and I was fully hoping that I'll connect to Wi-Fi and then be able to sit and do all of my cancellations while I was in the air. Unfortunately, I paid for the Wi-Fi connection, which was very poor. It did the messaging bits and all of that fine. Every website took eons to load. I wasn't able to, really find out how to cancel my check-in on the Etihad website. So, anyways, I decided that the only person that can help me was Sash. I reached out. I don't know if Sash is on this call, but I reached out, and thankfully, my luck was, at least in this case, my luck worked for me. Sash was available and online, and he fully helped me uh, uncheck myself. So he canceled my check-in with Etihad, and then I was able to tell Priya to go into my Aeroplan account and uh, cancel my Etihad tickets, and then she also canceled my Turkish tickets back into JFK. So I was able to do that with the help of Sash and Priya. Forever grateful. Thank you, Sash, if you listen to this after the fact. But yeah, oh, Sash is here. He's waving. Hey, Sash. Thank you so much again. I know not sure if I thanked you enough, but that really helped me because that took the stress out of it, and at least I could sit and enjoy that flight. I knew my trip was completely done, and all I had to do was figure out a way back. I was able to, in a very sluggish way, use Aeroplan and at least see what availability there were. And I could see United had availability, American had some availability as well. Uh, so decided that once I land, I'll go straight into a lounge, finish my, do a quick meal, a shower, and then turn right back and head home because the sole reason why I was flying was no longer there for me. So, anyways, last minute, and this is where I was talking about the United Polaris booking. It showed up. I booked 3 hours after I landed. I booked myself on a Polaris back from Paris into Newark and then onwards to Ottawa, knowing fully well that hey, this delay was almost 4 hours long. So EU 261 is going to sort of kick in, and I'll be able to make some of my money back because both of these cancellations required. I'm not 100K. I'm only a 50K. So I paid $150 for both of these cancellations. The two tickets I had to cancel. So that's $300. And then of course I booked myself on the ticket back where the in Canadian, the Polaris back all the way through to Ottawa was about $230 or something like that, 60,000 points plus $230. So, anyways, I didn't want to think about EU 261 at that moment, at that very moment, but I thought I'll go home, refresh, change, and whatnot, and then sit down and worry about my EU 261. The good thing was that I use a flight tracking thing called TripIt. TripIt is just something that I've hangover from my business flying days, or when I used to fly for business for the university. We used to use TripIt all the time. So I've kept TripIt as my thing. And sure enough, like literally hours after landing. I mean, I was on that Polaris ride back to New York, and I got a notification from TripIt saying, "Hey, you might be eligible for up to what did it say? Up to 600 euros or something like that because of the delay that you just experienced on the thing." So I was like, "Okay, at least they were tracking and they kind of know what's happening." Uh, Alex says, "Too bad you couldn't hop on to a La Premiere instead since you were already in Paris." Right. Yeah. No, I wasn't. I just, at that point, I really wanted to refresh and get home. I could not care for any more. In fact, Sash went one ahead and did a couple more searches. And he said, "Hey, there is another Etihad First Class that is available on American if you want to book it the next day." I was like, you know what? I don't want to spend a day just dilly-dallying at the airport hotel just to take another flight. So I was like, I'm done. If this doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and I'm back. Uh, Alex says, "Can we all have Sasha's contact info to call in emergencies?" I think you do. You can just ping Sash, and it depends when he checks and if he checks. I don't think I've ever had a situation where Sash has been unavailable. He's just pretty good at giving you those options because he does this so much. So yeah, you could try your luck, DM him on his Insta and see if he's able to help you out if you are stuck in that situation. Anyways, um, where was I? EU 261. Yeah. So my flight tracking system was already identifying that I'll be eligible for that. So I was like, oh, EU 261, this is why they're gold standard, because as soon as that delay happens, there is none of this nonsense about does it apply, does it not apply, which ruling applies. It's just straight up, very simple. If even if you just Google up EU 261, it very simply states how much you can get in compensation under what circumstances. So that was the helpful bit. And I was able to sort of get into that. But before we do that, quick thing, I posted a couple of pictures of my Air France thing on Instagram stories, and the immediate questions was, "How's the food?" Like I said, the food was the last thing on my mind, but I remember the presentation was good, decent food. My salad was frozen, like ice frozen. So that's the only thing I remember not being good. Otherwise, the food, the dessert, especially the dessert there was incredible. Some form of cream cheese cheesecake or something like that. It was top notch. And the champagne and the drinks were really good. So at least there was that. So I was able to enjoy a little bit of that, sleep a little bit, got into Paris, did my return booking, and just came back home after that. So let's talk about EU 261. Let's see if there's any pending questions here. Right. EU 261. So, like I said, it was super easy and straightforward. The thing that surprised me was even though ClearTrip gave me that information and FlightAware and all of them had tracked my flight and that they were all showing those delays, I never got any email proactively from the airline saying, "Hey, sorry, we were delayed, blah, blah, this, that, and the other." There was no compensation proactively added. But when I just went on I Googled EU 261 Air France, and then immediately brought me to an Air France page, which was dedicated for compensation, listed EU 261 sort of criteria and how much I could get. And that is exactly, so there was no change. It wasn't like they were interpreting EU 261 differently. And for those that don't know, EU 261 is air travel sort of passenger rights regulation that helps you claim compensation in cases of delays, lost bag, this, that, and the whole gamut of things. For European flights, both going in, out, transiting out of Europe, it applies in all of those cases. Anyways, I went in, I filled up a straightforward form. It allowed me to upload some documents. I did that and put it through. And then I was hoping I'll hear back from them in like the typical 3 to 5 business days. But lo hold, behold, what am I saying? But behold, like literally 3 to 4 hours after I sent them that thing and I got my case number, I got an immediate response back. But guess what? Their immediate response back from Maria, the agent, was, "Thank you for filing compensation. Your flight was not delayed by more than 3 hours, so EU 261 does not apply." And it was such an abrupt one-liner. And then that's it. There was nothing else. And then the cursory, "We are sorry that you had blah, blah, and we look forward to welcome you." That triggered me so much. I can't even tell you guys because not that I was expecting a huge sum to begin with, but I was at least hoping if, I mean, everywhere it said, given my delay of 3 hours or more and the distance I had traveled, that it could be up to 600 euros. I wasn't expecting 600 euros, but I had made my claim for both of those cancellations and a hotel booking that I had done in JFK overnight for my positioning flight. Uh, I, these are the three things I'd claim. So about four or $500 Canadian dollars. Uh, that's what I'd claimed. Oh, and I also, what else? There was one more thing. Anyways, whatever it was all about five, $600 is what I was claiming in Canadian. Five, 600 Canadian is what I was asking for in compensation. And their immediate response was, we weren't even delayed by 3 hours, so this doesn't apply. Luckily for me, and if you don't do this already, as the delays were happening, I had taken screenshots. I remember vividly as I landed, as the touchdown happened, my eSIM activated. And one of the first things I did as we were taxiing in was I took pictures of Google flights showing that delay, exact time of landing, and all of that, and particularly flight aware. And the good thing is you don't have to do it as you land because all of these flight tracking services, FlightAware, for example, or even Google Flights, uh, does give you data for up to 2 to 3 days after that flight. FlightAware particularly is good at giving you up to 3 days flight information for up to 3 days um, from that flight date. So I was able to take screenshots of that, and I responded back to them with all three screenshots: Google Flights, TripIt, which had told me that, hey, there's a compensation that is possible because of your flight delay, and Flight Aware. So I took all three screenshots, and I, in very firm words, said, your claim is factually incorrect, and I'm disappointed that you're making that claim. Here's the three flight services that I have, clearly showing it was 3 hours and 49 minutes or whatever the delay was, that it's over three. And yes, EU 261 applies. I was being like, not being rude to them, but this is just the way I'm thinking and saying. I typed everything in. There was no template or things I wanted to follow. I just wrote that, sent it in, and sure enough, in another couple of hours, they did not acknowledge that, oops, sorry, we made the wrong judgment. Same person responded back to me saying, could you please send us the original receipts of all of the things? Because I'd sent them the cancellation notices and all of that, the cancellations I'd made. I didn't send them the original booking. So then they asked me for original booking and my banking information. So as soon as they asked me for those two things, I kind of knew that they had realized that they had made a mistake, or they were trying to pull a fast one, and I wasn't having any of it. So I kind of knew that they wouldn't ask for banking information if they weren't going to refund me for that. Anyways, then they eventually finally applied whatever 261 regulations they could apply, and they refunded me $950 Canadian, because there was some compensation value plus the value that I had to pay out of pocket for all of the cancellations. So they gave me all of that $950. Uh, and to be honest, all of this happened within 24 hours of me coming back, which was mind blowing for an airline to be able to provide that kind of servicing for a delayed or for a compensation to begin with. So that sort of was like, oh wow, I can't believe this entire thing is sort of done and dusted in 24 hours, despite that rough start in that first email where they said this does not apply because our flight wasn't delayed for 3 hours. Despite that, everything taken care of in 24 hours. You got a confirmation saying, thank you, your money's on the way. It gave me a screenshot of exactly how much I should expect and when, all of that. It hasn't hit my account just yet, but it should be coming through. They said it can take up to 3 to 5 business days for it to reflect, for the money to reflect, but their confirmation had come through for that within 24 hours of me initiating the compensation. So before I go past this, because I learned a few other things along the way. Let's see. There's some comments here that I want to read out. Goldie, you were asking what was the penalty? I guess the penalty was $150 each for the two cancellations. My hotel in Abu Dhabi, the overnight hotel that I had booked, was booked using a free night certificate and some top-up points. That was refunded right away, even though I had canceled on the day. I went back into my Marriott app and I messaged the hotel saying, hey, unfortunately, I'm stuck in Paris. Like I was literally in Paris at that point of time. I've had cancellations. Can you please make an exception and refund my booking? Initially, they said you'll have to contact Marriott because you used points and certificate to make this booking. So I thought, okay, whatever, I'll just get home and contact Marriott. But by the time I returned to New York, I had gotten another email saying that the hotel had canceled my booking, which meant that and they sent me a confirmation email saying that your free night certificate is back in your account and the top up points that you had used is also being refunded. So that was a clean refund, which Marriott, I didn't expect that they would do that, but I was happy that they did. For the overnight hotel that I had in New York, which was about just under $300 Canadian, that one was again within that window of it was a non-refundable. I had to cancel it 7 days in advance of my stay, which it wasn't. So, anyways, I thought that was a goner, and I had already claimed that through Air France. So that was that. But I did check other insurance and this, that, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So that was my penalty. It was like $300 there, plus about $300 at the not JFK, yeah, at the JFK hotel. Alex says, too bad you, oh, no, sorry, I've already read that. Where are we? It is so weird how some airlines are very forgiving when booking premium cabins and will let you rebook no penalty on a no-show or even return the booking amount where you booked your missed flight, where you missed your flight and others are not. It's a mixed bag. Yeah, lo and behold. Yes. What was I saying? Lo, hold, and behold? Yeah. Thank you, Heather, for correcting. That's exactly what I wanted to say, but my scrambled brain of trying to tell you my story while being grammatically correct wasn't happening. Victoria says, is there a maximum claim window 1 year post flight? Can't recall offhand. I think EU261 allows much bigger window than that. Somebody will have to check, but I impulsively want to say up to 3 years, but that could be wrong. But I think it's more than a year with EU261. It depends on under what the Montreal Convention may have certain regulation, EU261 may have something, and if you're doing it through the US, it may have something else. So you may want to check. I'm not fully sure. Alex says they realize that you know the law. To be honest, Alex, I would have thought that, oh, they know that I understand my law. I don't think it was that. I think they misread. My honest opinion is that agent who wrote to me, Maria, who eventually processed my refund and whatnot, I think she may have checked the wrong date because I left uh, Ottawa on the 3rd of Feb and reached Paris on the 4th of Feb. She may have looked at the arrival of that flight on the 3rd of Feb. Like, you know what I mean? Just a day off because that date change. She didn't account for that date change. So when I pointed to her with all of these screenshots and also said that I left on February 3rd and the flight that landed, of course, I gave the flight number and whatnot. That flight that landed in Paris on February 4th was in fact delayed by XYZ. And that EU261 applies. I think that's what it is. I want to give them that benefit of that they just got the date of which flight I was referring to wrong. But whatever it was, at least they were able to fix that right away. I mean, it would have been nice had they said that, oh, sorry, we made a mistake, shouldn't have said, whatever it is. They never acknowledged that bit. They just said, oh, yeah, just send us your banking information or original receipts was that next follow-up email from that same person. Raul says, don't you get a fixed amount for delays? I did know that you have to prove your expenses. I did not know you had to prove expenses with receipts. Raul, in this case, yes, you do get a fixed amount. And I think that fixed amount, depending on how much delay there was and what was already offered and this, that, and the other, there's a little bit of variation. Between 400 euros and 600 euros, I think is what that fixed amount can be. So they did explain that to me, that there was a fixed amount that they were giving me for the delay, and then a certain amount because I was claiming for all of the cancellations. And because I was claiming for other ticket cancellations and my entire trip interruption, which is why I had to present those receipts to them. Had I just claimed that, oh, you were late, you owe me X amount of dollars, thank you very much, and I'm leaving, they would have given me the amount, but it wouldn't have been $950 worth because that $950 included both those portions, the fixed amount plus what I was claiming. Could it have been more than that? Yeah, they could have. I mean, if I had fought tooth and nail with them, I think they would be forced to give me 600 euros in compensation fixed plus the claim that I'm trying to make for all of the cancellations I've had to do. but you know what, $950 more than covered all of my cancellation, this, that, and the other. So I was good with that. I didn't respond. I just sent them my information. They responded back with, this is what we are refunding you. I didn't question it. I'm not questioning it, but you are right. If you go to EU 261, there are fixed amounts listed there, but it also says that there is a bit of leeway room that the airlines can decide, but airlines can't go below a certain amount that is listed on that chart with EU 261. Goldie says, how did you find a flight delay in Google? Goldie, if you just Google the flight number, so Air France 327 is the flight that goes out of Ottawa to Paris, for example. So if you just go Air France AF 327 flight status and on Google and hit search, then it'll show up. It'll show up right away. Yeah. And more than predicting anything, it will just do the tracking. It does active tracking of all the flights. So you just have to put the flight number and just put the flight number and hit enter, and you'll get Google will automatically give you this flight status. But if you put AF327 flight status, then it'll bring you up. It'll bring up that page right away without you having to click on another link. Thanks, Heather. Yeah, thank you, Heather, for always being on top of things. Perfect. Heather has just confirmed within 3 years of flight departure date. Yeah, instinctively, I wanted to say EU 261 was super generous, and that's what it is. It is 3 years from flight departure date. Curious here says Air France typically pushes back on EC 261. Is it EC 261? I've been calling it EU 261, European Commission as opposed to European Union. Huh. Okay. It's not unusual. I mean, they barely pushed back, to be honest. If they pushed back, I would have been like, oh, yeah, here's another airline trying to skirt their responsibility from air passenger rights. But they did not push back. They just gave me a factually incorrect answer, which was very easy to prove wrong. And once they knew that I had all of these screenshots, there's just no way to push back at that. So, yeah. TP, who's TP? TP, on the other hand, very reasonable. I crossed the 4-hour delay window, tap Portugal, 4-hour window by a minute or two from the West Coast, sent an email at 3 a.m. in Lisbon due to jet lag. They approved the claim in 3 hours. Yeah, and I think it's to do with that EU 261 or EC 261 regulation where these airlines have all understood that they have certain responsibilities, certain baseline compensation has to be paid. So what's the point? If you give somebody that is already aggrieved a quick turnaround time, it just presents a positive picture of that airline. And to be honest, that's exactly what's happening right now. Is had Air France not done such a great service by approving the claim and whatnot within 24 hours, I would have been poo-pooing them right now and telling you how awful their service was, this, that, and the other. But the fact that they've made it so easy to make the claim and they're willing to give you the base compensation, do it within 24 hours, or in your case, within 3 hours of the delayed flight. Hey, in fact, I remember now with TripIt, one of the first times I understood how strong your EU 261. Now you have me thinking EU versus EC 261 all the time. But I'm going to continue calling it EU 261. You guys can correct me at the end. But EU 261 is so strong is once I was delayed by just 3 hours and a couple of minutes on Swiss, didn't even make much of it because I was headed to Mumbai, or maybe I was coming back from Mumbai with a transit in Zurich. When I reached either Toronto or Mumbai, I already had an email in my account saying from the airline, from Swiss, saying, hey, sorry, it was a 3-hour delay, blah, blah. Here's your compensation. They gave me flight credits. They didn't give me cash back, but the flight credits were something like 300 euros or something like that. So they proactively gave it to me, and I wasn't even going to claim or do anything. And that's when I really understood how strong these regulations were, and how seriously the airlines took it, to be honest. So yeah, fantastic. Nothing but good things to say about both the airline, how they managed it, and the regulation itself. Sash says, shout out to Flighty app that many are using for tracking. Absolute fantastic app for iOS users and real-time alerts. Yep, a lot of people are using the Flighty app. I just haven't switched over to that because for my for things that I use, my TripIt thing is working just fine, but the Flighty app, a lot more powerful. I have it installed. I just don't actively use it. Um, Raul says, last time this happened to me, flight overbooked. The Air France ground staff came to my seat after boarding and asked me if I wanted cash or credit. I received an email asking for my details before takeoff. Fantastic. Like, lovely to know that that's the level of proficiency with Air France, which is so good. Like, I'm just so impressed. In fact, I'll tell you what, when I was filling up that compensation, the first initial form on the Air France website, it did say that I could ask for future flight credits. And in that case, I'll have to submit very few things. But if I was asking for cash, then there was a few other requirements. I would have to submit maybe receipts and this, that, and the other. And I selected future flight credits. But that first conversation, with that first response from them was you don't whatever qualify. Completely sidetracked that because that next one that came through, they said, we need your banking information. I was like, okay, here's my banking information. I'll take cash. But I would have been more than happy to take future flight credits from Air France, to be honest, because I know I will be back on that. In fact, I am back on that exact same flight in a couple months' time when I'm headed to India and I'm doing Ottawa, Paris, Mumbai. Uh, so yeah, Paris Mumbai would be on the A350. So I'm looking forward to experiencing that. And hopefully the Ottawa Paris the second time around sort of resets my memory in a good way, and I have a better experience than this. But yeah, so good times. And based on what Rahul has said and Kiri has said, it just looks like most European airlines are doing, at least the two that we've listed, Air France and TAP Portugal, have done really well by their customers, and Swiss as well, in my other experience. Cool. So here's the other couple of things that I sort of understood, which I kind of didn't know. So that positioning flight that I was talking about from New York to Ottawa, which I'd booked on cash. I'd used my Air Canada wallet. I guess the last time that I may have canceled something, I kept some credits in my Air Canada wallet, and I used it for this booking, which again had to be canceled. And this time around, I realized that if I did future flying credits or future credits with Air Canada, this was an Air Canada flight that was bringing me back into Ottawa, it was letting me keep the entire amount, $400, 400 something dollars was the rate. But if I asked for that same cancellation thing into my Air Canada wallet, it was charging me that change fee or the cancellation fee and giving me 300 something. So $120 or something like that was being deducted from that if I kept it in the wallet. So I thought, you know what? That positioning from Ottawa to New York, I will use it at some point in the next year. So I took for this time, I took it as a future flight credit and kept my entire $461 or something like that, because I know that I'll be using that. And after that, I went and read on Flyer Talk that you could call in and ask for that future flight credit to be converted into a wallet at any point of time, and they will do that deduction and give you the wallet credit if you think that you're not going to fly on that same sector, because that future flight credit is locked into that sector. And if you make any changes, instead of going from, say, New York to Ottawa, you want it as New York to Toronto or Toronto to New York or whatever, then that change fee automatically applies and it gets deducted anyways. But if you're going to fly that same segment just at a future date, 1 year from the day, then you could keep that entire value of $461, and all you have to pay is that difference in pricing is what you have to pay. I did not know this. I just thought that future flight credits were locked in. That's what you got. And Air Canada wallet was just something that you could choose to. I didn't realize that there would be a price difference between the two. So that's the one thing that I learned about Air Canada wallet versus Air Canada future credit. So if you are debating that, if you think you're going to cancel or change something, and if you know that you're going to fly that same segment or you can fly that same segment again, obvious recommendation would be to use it as a future credit because you retain the full value. If you bring it back into your Air Canada wallet, it will auto deduct it before putting it in the wallet. If you started off with a future credit like I have this time around, and then closer to that deadline date a year from now, if I think that, oh, you know what, I'm not going to fly that segment, all I have to do is just call in and ask them to move my cash into the Air Canada wallet, and they'll do that deduction of that change fee and put the credit in my Air Canada wallet as well. Handy dandy information that I just learned. The other piece that I learned was, because my Marriott booking at JFK was needed to be canceled, I looked up my Marriott Bonvoy Brilliant card. because I thought, hey, that card must have some decent cancellation and trip interruption insurance because it's the premium Bonvoy card out there. Turns out it's pretty restrictive, and I put it down in my notes just so I could read it out to you. So it covers both cancellation and trip interruption. It has insurance for both, but it clearly says covered losses include trip cancellations or trip interruptions that result from the following, and they have very specific criteria of what scenarios they'll cover you for. So I'll read it out. It says, and this is again for Marriott Bonvoy Brilliant card. Um, this is their insurance policy. So covered losses for cancellations and interruptions resulting from accidental body injury or loss of life, sickness of either eligible traveler, blah, blah. Uh, Inclement weather, which prevents a reasonable and prudent person from traveling or continuing on a covered trip. Eligible traveler or his or her spouse's change in military orders, terrorist action or hijacking, call to jury duty, um, and then quarantine imposed by a physician or for other health reasons. Nowhere, none of these things apply in my scenario, which is my flight was delayed and I missed everything, so this needs to be canceled. Yeah, I cannot believe that the premium Bonvoy card out there, or at least one of the premium Bonvoy cards out there, has such a restrictive cancellation and interruption insurance. So, anyways, I'm just glad Air France has got me covered and I don't need to deal with them. But just thought that I'll put it out there in terms of very specific criteria, restrictive criteria, to be honest. Uh, yeah, so that was the overall experience. There is a question here. Does the conversion push the expiry date of the wallet credit back a year? I don't think the wallet credit has expiry, does it? Can somebody check if Air Canada wallet I mean, I'm sure it has an expiry, but I don't think it has that 1 year expiry from what I remember. I've never kept credits or money in my wallet for that long anyways, but if somebody will have to confirm that for us. Uh, Right. So you're saying if it was canceled, it has that 1 year, and you're asking if converting that from a flight credit back to the wallet is going to reset that and make it one year further. Likely, if that's the case, I guess, but I'll have to do that. I do not know, to be honest. Greg is responding saying, I had no, not responding, just stating I've had very poor luck claiming trip delay cancellation insurance through credit cards. This is always more. There are always some conditions on the insurance that make the claim invalid. Yeah, yeah, not every credit card or every insurance is as generous. I'm just happy, and I've said this before as well. Most people want to immediately go to a call up and check their credit card insurance, but I think you should always go to the source first. In this case, both airline helped me out for the airline cancellations, and one of two of my bookings from Marriott were made an exception and refunded. The good thing was the other one that wasn't, Air France gave me enough that it covers me, so I don't have to worry about it. Simply because credit card insurances are good to have in very specific circumstances, but are not always the easiest to deal with. You won't have a very easy time claiming. It certainly won't come through in 24 hours, I can tell you that. Expires from the original ticket issue date, says Heather. Etihad says credit card insurance often states that you must go through the airline first. Yeah, of course. They will ask you that as well. And it is not uncommon for people to do both of those and see which one gives them better coverage or more money in return. But I always start with airlines. That's been my experience that most airlines will do well. I've had a couple of baggage delays, baggage lost, things with Air Canada that came through. Took a little bit of time, but it came through. Air France now, Swiss the other time. So yeah, I've had good experience with the airlines generally speaking. So I've not had to deal with credit cards as much. I do remember dealing with a credit card way back when for my baggage was lost or something like that. It took almost 15 days, if I remember, a couple of weeks before they gave me my refund back. And again, I had to submit a whole bunch of receipts, this, that, and the other, to even get that sorted out through the credit card company. Just realized that the Aeroplan, the elite status dashboard is now up and running with a cautionary statement saying that they're still updating things in the backdrop. So the the ranges and the information may not be accurate, but in my case, it seems to be fairly accurate. Except for e-up transaction history, which is not the dashboard to begin with. But if I click through and check my e-up transaction history, it's not showing anything past January 2024 or something like that. I haven't looked at like my rollover e-ups. I see the newer e-ups are showing now, but I don't know if that's the rollover ones. It's from the credit card. It's from my elite benefits. None of that is showing on the transaction history just yet, but meh, don't care about it as much. But I did check and none of it was making sense to me, at least on the e-up transaction history. But there's enough there if I need to use something right away. The newer e-ups are now valid until 2027, and they are showing up, but I just don't know which ones they are. Is it the status ones? Is it the rollover ones? It'll be nice in the next few days if they could sort that out as well. Greg says also credit cards require official proof of delay cancellation, which can be a pain to get. Also, lots of cards require all payment to be on the card, so partial gift card vouchers, etc., make it invalid. Yes, yep. Kiri says, my one remaining e-up that was expired 2 years ago is still showing up on my account. Well, lucky you, one remaining e-up. Where would you use it? Well, like I said, for me, I don't care as much about e-ups these days, so I just checked. Didn't make sense to me, but there were some that were active till 2027. So I was like, good, at least I know it's there if I ever need it. Shall we move on from these things? Like, where are we? Almost. Yeah, I was hoping to close this one out a little bit earlier since this is the second one we are doing in the week. But let's talk about a couple of at least the one thing that I had on my radar. Amex supplementary card bonus is now active, so go into your Amex accounts and see what's available. If you don't have supplementary cards and if you have a usage of that, you are able to add supplementary cards to your current Amex cards until March 31st and get up to 30,000 points, 30,000 MR points for adding supplementary cards. The reason I say 30,000 is because that's I got two offers. My Aeroplan Reserve card is showing supplementary card offers. So that one is 25,000 per card, up to two cards. So up to 50,000 points is possible through my Aeroplan Reserve personal card. I also got an offer on my Business Platinum card, which is 30,000 points per supplementary card, up to three cards. So that's up to 90,000 points that I can have by adding supplementary cards and, of course, doing a little bit of spend. And I think the spend on my Business Platinum, if I remember correctly, for each card was $2,500 or $3,000 on each card that I have to put. For my employee cards, and then I'm able to get up to 90,000 points on that. So yeah, fairly strong. I have that offer on both my one personal, which is the Aeroplan Reserve, and one on my Business Platinum card. So fantastic offer. If you're able to make use of it, that's easy sort of points if you needed a supplementary card anyways. Excited to see the Neo Cathay World Elite MasterCard is back on the affiliate thing. I guess the card always existed, but they have relaunched with a new offer of up to 40,000 points, which is fantastic to have 40,000 points Asia miles. Yeah, 40,000 Asia miles that you can have. So that card is fairly strong if you know what you're using it for, especially if you travel to Asia quite a bit. It can be a handy card to have in your pocket, but that card is pretty decent for most Canadians to use. But Cathay these days, I only look for intra-Asia or from one end of Asia to the other end of Asia, or even Middle East and things like that. I haven't paid too much attention on Cathay availability, to be very honest, from North America to Asia or vice versa. But if you have in the recent past, let me know what your experience has been. Asia Miles is pretty good at having Cathay availability within its own program. But if the availability is always as good and at standard rates as, say, a Chris Flyer from Singapore, I don't know. I just haven't played around enough. That said, so yeah, if you can find a good usage of Asia Miles, I think that's a good card to have in your pocket, even if it's your supplementary card, or even if it's a card that you want to use, because that card not only comes with a 40,000 points, it also comes with a 15% discount on your Cathay flights. So if you're going to fly Cathay anyways, there's discount on that. And like Sash said, you could definitely use those points towards another partner like Japan Airlines and fly their first class product. All right, folks, let's close this one out. I will be available on Discord if you need me, or other social media channels if you have any questions or concerns. But until next weekend. Have a wonderful, wonderful time, and we'll connect again next week. Take care, folks. Cheers. Bye.